One of the many curiosity human beings have are what lurks outside of our planet. Are there alien beings lurking just outside of our solar system? Or maybe there's nothing out there at all? It's almost like the question of life after death. These people, though, claim that they have had real experiences with what they call extraterrestrials. Now, as always, of course, it is up to you whether you believe these or not. If you have a story that you would like to share in a future video, whether it be with an alleged alien being or something completely different, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I would love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. Now, without further ado, let's get into these creepy alien stories. I have a friend who lives 3 kilometers from my house. We love to meet at his place because he lives alone since his parents work abroad. One night, I and my other friend went to his house to hang out. Every time when it's time for us to head home, usually that was around 1 to 3 a.m., we had to walk 2 kilometers and had 2 paths to choose from. We could follow the main road, or we could get off on the main road and walk our way home on some kind of country road. People mostly avoid this road at night because it's pitch black. There is only 1 lamp before it. This would be important later on. And it is also near a graveyard and river. We always loved to walk our way home on this country road because we were like some kind of thrill seekers. But thrill never came until this night. While we were walking and chatting, I noticed a man. I at least believe he was a man anyway. He was behind us under the only lamp before the road starts, and I told my friend, "Hey man, someone is behind us. Don't turn around, just walk a bit faster. Who would walk alone on this road in the middle of the night?" Naturally, he turned the same second I told him not to. After 30 seconds, I turned again to notice the man getting closer, but he was walking. He wasn't running or anything. I told my friend, "Hey, he is gaining on us, let's speed up a bit." After I said that, I have turned around again only to find nothing. It should be noted that on that road there are no trees to hide behind. On one side there is a river, on the other side there is a small hill descending into a big field. That night the moon was full and we stopped in shock, scanning the field and riverside to find the man, but it seemed like he perished into thin air. We are standing there for about a minute after that, and then we decided to speed home. When we came in front of my house, we were talking about the encounter, and while we were talking, we saw the man standing under the street lamp at the beginning of my street, probably a good 150 to 200 meters away. He was at the place he passed like 5 minutes ago. Finally, he just moved from the spotlight and perished. We stood in shock once again and agreed that this time we should definitely go home. It was a good thing for me since I was in front of my house, so I just ran in. Then, while we were talking on the phone about that man, something ran under my window really fast. I could make out the silhouette of a head and shoulders, the head having some odd shape like aliens have. I hang up right away and cover myself over the head thinking, what was that? Later, when I came to my senses, I thought it was probably some guy. Maybe he ran really fast by my window. I mean, it's 3:30 a.m. after all. I probably imagined the odd alien head shape. After all of that, we were trying to find a logical assumption as to who the weird guy could have been and how he could have moved so fast, and how he could just disappear. What I had seen in the shadow, what was that? I pondered this until one day I passed under my window and saw something quite interesting. My height is about 6 foot, and my head barely came to the window. That's when it hit me. The thing that passed under my window must at least be twice my height. I have had a measured height from the spot that I saw the head at. To this day, I have no idea what we saw, a ghost, an alien, some kind of creature. I have no idea. I awoke inside my SUV. It felt like the doors had been left wide open for hours. I quickly got dressed and put on my boots and opened the door. It was just as cold outside as it was in my vehicle. I swear, it was like my doors were open all night. That's how cold it was in there. Even with 6 blankets and a ton of pillows, I walked back to where everyone else was and asked Brandon if he came to my vehicle last night. He looked at me, laughed, and said no, and then he went straight to sleep. I believed him. Why would he be outside my vehicle in the middle of the night? He would have had to trek all the way to the vehicles in the dark, and likely would be freezing his butt off in the process. I explained the strange dream I had just had to everyone, and they immediately started giving me a hard time and joking around. They said maybe it was aliens or Bigfoot, and everyone laughed. I laughed too, but something inside me knew there was more to it. I never had a dream like this before. It felt real. Everything was the same in the dream as it was in real life, and I can't explain it. The only weird thing is that Brandon really does have blue eyes, but they obviously don't produce their own glow like I saw in my dream. I remember in my dream, when I saw Brandon outside my vehicle, I was skeptical and thought, "What the heck are you doing?" Once I saw his eyes glow like that, I was lulled into a false and almost irresistible sense of security. I thought, oh, it's just Brandon, let him in. It was almost as if something mimicked my best friend in order to get me to unlock the car doors. Stranger still is that I felt exhausted as if I had never slept at all. But I checked my phone and I got at least 7 hours of sleep. I'm still not sure what to think about my supposed dream. I still remember it like it was yesterday, even though it's been roughly 5 years. I've looked up similar occurrences online, and a lot of people think it might have something to do with the fourth kind or aliens. I'm not sure. Thanks for listening to my story. A final note, if anyone goes camping near Mount Rainier, don't leave your group, even for a second. So one day I was on the way home from school. I was in the football club. I was about 10 at the time, and I was walking by myself. As I got to my street, I witnessed this strange humanoid creature with a notepad looking in everyone's window and taking notes. It put me on edge even though I was about 100 meters away from it. The thing turned to me, and I could see it fully. It was stood upright like any old person. However, its neck was abnormally long. I'd say at least 50 centimeters. It had a baggy sports top and baggy jeans with white shoes. It looked at me, so I hid behind a parked car, and as he turned away from me, I sprinted to my house. I instantly threw my stuff on the floor and went to tell my mom. She thought I was lying until I told her to look out the front window. We stood there for about 5 minutes, and there it was. It stepped right into the middle of our driveway and stared at us for a while. Then, as if he hadn't seen us, he walked up to the window and started writing things down on his notepad. He proceeded to walk away from the house and back down the street. The look on my mom's face was that of pure horror. I rushed to the bottom of the driveway to see if I could catch one more glimpse of it. However, it seemed it had vanished. It was the new millennium, and I had just graduated from college in a small town where I lived my entire life. My dad was a gentle giant who instilled a sense of duty in me, so I decided to follow in his footsteps and become a police officer. As a rookie, I quickly adapted to my new job and loved every minute of it. It taught me a lot of great things, as well as not to take every call seriously. However, on this particular day, I had an encounter that changed my perspective of the universe and our place within it. It was around 2 a.m. when I had just received a call from dispatch, notifying me of an elderly female who was in a serious distress. She claimed to be all alone, and that aliens were outside her window trying to get in. I was the closest in the area, so I quickly took the call and turned on my lights. The roads were pretty dark and empty, so I didn't have to use my siren. The way the dispatcher described this call was quite amusing to me, and I couldn't help but chuckle at how absurd it would be for aliens to actually be breaking into someone's home. Previously, though, I had a few calls similar to this one, and it was usually just a prank or a distraught individual who was having certain issues. So, this night, I simply assumed it was just such a call and prepared not to be surprised. I arrived at the residence sometime after 2 a.m. and slowly made my way onto the dark gravel road that led onto the house. It was a huge property, but I could make out faint lights in the distance. I reached a fence that blocked my way, so I got out and continued on foot. As I approached closer, I suddenly started feeling this unusually warm sensation. I also began to smell this very metallic burning odor, which seemed to grow more intense as I suddenly started feeling kind of nauseous. As I approached the house, I was within probably about 100 feet when I suddenly froze in my tracks. A huge, glowing object about 30 feet wide and shaped like a hockey puck suddenly appeared in front of the house and silently floated about a foot off the ground. The smell at this point became so strong that I could taste it burning in my throat. I immediately attempted to let dispatch know what I was seeing, but my radio was going crazy with loud pulsing static, so I quickly tried to flank to the house from the other side. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I found myself in my patrol car, staring blankly at the gate in front of me. I looked around wondering how the hell I got there, as I was just at the rear of the house a second ago. My head throbbed, and I felt extremely nauseous. I stumbled out of my patrol car in a daze and looked around for any signs of the strange object. It was as if it disappeared into thin air and was never even there. My dispatcher called out for me on the radio, which immediately jolted me back into reality. She asked why I wasn't responding to her calls for 40 minutes now, which confused and startled me. I told her that I just spoke with her a minute ago, but she insisted that we didn't speak for almost an hour. I couldn't remember anything that happened after I reached the back of the house, but the old woman who lived there claimed she saw me from her bedroom window falling to the ground and being approached by these short alien beings. She also claimed to have been abducted by them many times before, where she was taken to a bright room with rounded surfaces and scanned multiple times by what I can only assume is a machine. For weeks after that incident, I had to deal with these repercussions of telling my story, and quickly realized not to involve it in my friendships and professional life. I had a few dreams about the whole encounter, though, which include scenes of me lying on a table inside a bright room with smooth surfaces, surrounded by aliens with large, black eyes. Till this day, I'm still not sure what happened that night, or if whatever I experienced was even real. All I know for a fact is that I am missing about 40 minutes of time that I cannot account for. I wasn't one to believe in the paranormal such as ghosts or aliens, but one night in October changed my entire point of view. It was around 10 or 11 at night when we were returning home from our grandparents' house when we noticed some lights blinking above the mountain. My sister, let's say Lucy, was saying it was probably some airplanes coordinating with another one, since we did live by a nearby private airport. I watched as the lights made a sequence of red, green, blue, and white pulses before joking that it was probably aliens coming to abduct us. Lucy and I laughed. We came to our neighborhood and drove along our road, which wasn't maintained well due to the weather and extreme heat we received. We jostled over cracks, potholes, and uneven pavement in the black Ford that Lucy drove. We came to a stop at the dirt lot next to our driveway when the truck was parked when not in use. The one good thing about our house was that it was nice, and it was surrounded by silence usually. To our left, we had our neighbors, and to our right was an endless, uninhabited desert. The only house that was out in the desert was the neighbor who lived past where the road transformed into a dirt path, which was 400 yards away from us. I looked up at the lights again, and Lucy began turning the truck around to back it up into the dirt lot. They began pulsing more frequently before a large column of blue light lit up the mountains. I began to freak out and move back, closer to the driver's seat. The radio began to fuzz out as another blast of light appeared. This time I saw a roundish silhouette above the light. My breathing came more rapidly as I screamed, "Oh my gosh!" over and over again. Lucy looked up to see what I was freaking out about. The lights disappeared from the mountain ridge, followed with a loud crack. The truck stopped and my sister stepped out to see what she had run over. "Darn it, look what you did," she yelled at me, but I was shaking in fear. I would not leave the cab of the truck. I was clinging to the belt that was slung across my chest. My sister saw the fear in my face and climbed back into the truck. She turned the key and the truck hummed to life. The radio was playing smoothly like it usually did, as my sister pulled out of the dirt lot and backed into the driveway, which was closer to the front door. She turned the cab lights on and turned her phone's flashlight on. She climbed out and walked over to my side. Lucy opened my door and motioned for me to come out. I unlatched the seatbelt with shaky hands. I slid out of the seat, hunched over with fear clenching to me. Lucy shone the flashlight in the direction of the door. It had to be the one night my mother had forgotten to turn the porch lights on for us. I ran to the front door and huddled by it. My sister unlocked the door as quickly as she could. I ran inside, straight to the room where my mother and stepfather slept. They were both in very deep sleep. I kept shaking my mother, trying to wake her up. "Mom, please wake up," I said, tears in my eyes. She sat up, an irritated frown on her face. My stepfather woke up and was asking me what was wrong. I quickly explained the experience I had gone through. They both got out of bed and followed me down the hall. I wasn't brave enough to go outside, so I watched Lucy, my mother, and my stepfather step outside to inspect the night sky. They didn't see anything, except that the truck wasn't parked correctly and that we broke the small picket fence guarding my mother's cactus garden. To this day, nobody believes me with the exception of my grandmother's friend, who was a paranormal hunter. I still am haunted by my sighting, which I was sure was otherworldly. Now, this was bizarre. A very bizarre conversation I had with a friend. Somewhere around 3 years ago, my then friend at the time was drinking with me and a bunch of other friends. The remainder decided to call it a night and go home early. However, me and my friend decided to get a cab back to my place. It was about 4 a.m., and he turned to me with a tremor in his voice and wanted to speak to me about something he hasn't told many people. He explained to me that when he was in his early teens, his father sat down with him one night and told him that he had been visited by aliens, and that ever since that visit, these aliens had been fascinated with his father. He told his son, my friend, that when he's older he has to expect to be visited by them because they're weirdly fascinated with his family. Of course, he took it with a pinch of salt, however, according to him, he should have listened. A few years after that conversation, he claimed he was in a room about to fall asleep when he saw an alien-like creature enter his room. Before he could sit up, he said he literally was teleported into a room and was lying down on a metal plate. Yes, this seems like the stereotypical encounter. However, just bear with me, please. As he was laying there, he said that he felt an incision somewhere on his body, and that he was in agony where the incision was made. He said that he blacked out, and when he woke up the next morning, he was in his bed with a genuine incision on his body. He said for weeks after the bizarre encounter, he would have an eerie feeling that someone was watching him, like someone was tracking him, and then at night, he would hear static, and then it'd fade away slowly. He's claimed to have been visited a few times. However, each time he's still worried and scared. Whilst he was telling me this story, it was a clear night sky with no noise or light pollution. He told me that every now and then, he'd look up in the sky and see what looks like a UFO traveling slowly by. And when they must notice he's looking at them, they'll shoot off really quickly. As we were speaking about this, he told me to look up, and with my own eyes, I did see what I can only best describe as an anomaly in the sky moving slowly, but in a pattern. And a few seconds later, it seemed to have sped up and then disappeared. I'm definitely skeptical, however he seemed genuine whilst telling me this, and the whole father encounter was very specific to be fictional. So, you guys make up your own minds on that one. The event I'm about to tell you happened in January 2005 at Devon, United Kingdom. Every Wednesday evening, me and my little brother would get the chance to take our 3 dogs out for a walk. On this particular evening, we decided we would walk somewhere different, since we always did the same route. So after about an hour of walking through different fields and taking different turns, we came to some woods. We should have really turned around by then, since we didn't really know these woods at all, but for whatever reason, we decided to go on. It was about to get dark, but we didn't care. We felt safe having the dogs around, which is probably not so great in hindsight. About 20 minutes of walking through the woods, we became aware that one of the dogs was barking hysterically and acting in a very strange way. Not long after this, the other 2 began doing the same exact thing. My little brother and I became very frightened, as we had no idea what they were barking at. We had no idea how to calm them down. We didn't even know where they were. We soon noticed what they were barking at. My brother grabbed my arm and pointed out a huge beaming light in the sky. It was honestly like nothing I had ever seen in my entire life up until that point. It was extremely bright, very silent, and was moving at an incredibly slow pace. I knelt down, holding the dogs and my brother very tight. I felt I had to try and protect them with whatever I could, I guess. Not that I'd be much of protection, I guess. The fact that I was 18 meant nothing. I was just as afraid as them. It took around 10 minutes to fly out of sight, and when it did, I was honestly relieved. Up ahead, we could see the end of the woods. We walked very fast because by now it was very, very dark, which made the whole experience that more terrifying. Little did I know, it was about to get a whole lot worse. Once the dogs got to the opening of the woods, they started barking again. Since they were there before us, it took us a minute to see what they were barking at. Instantly, once the barking started, my brother clung on to me. We slowly approached the opening, to which there was a huge field. But there it was. The enormous object we had all seen overhead was at the very bottom of the vast field. We crouched down and just stared. We didn't dare speak. At this time, there were no lights, just a cold-looking object. It was pretty far away from us, so we didn't feel that threatened by it. But then all of a sudden, I noticed something was coming out of the craft, one by one. There were roughly 8 to maybe 10 beings. We were too far to see their faces, thankfully, but they were quite clearly prodding the grass with something. The dogs went silent, which was weird. They just sat watching what was going on. They seemed as intrigued as we were. I seriously could not believe what I was looking at. We sat watching them for roughly 10 minutes. That was, until my brother persuaded me that we should start walking back. He was right, but although I was petrified, I just could not stop watching these beings. I kept thinking that I will probably never see anything like this in my entire life ever again. And I guess I was right, because I haven't. We eventually made it home. I could not even speak because I was so shocked. Our mom and dad surprisingly believed us, but not many other people did. I don't care because they didn't see what we did, and I'm grateful for it. Although I won't ever be going to that area again, I just know I will never forget this. About 2 months ago, my 3-year-old son started having dreams about visitors during the night. A few months before that, he went to the doctors and received the dreadful flu shot, so I passed it off as junior PTSD from that. He talked about a man coming through his wall and giving him a glowing needle on the left side of his head, which is seemingly normal dream for a toddler with an imagination. The only TV he really watches is kid Netflix, and never more than an hour a day under strict supervision. We're kinda weird like that, honestly. The dreams went on. He would get up around the same time, 2:30 or 3 a.m., almost every single night. He would come into my room and sleep in my bed with me, and I would calm him down before bringing him back to his room. He would go on about the dream as I calmed him, describing a typical monster. Black eyes and hair, long fingers and a large head. A few days after this, he was obsessed with drawing pictures of what he called the doctor that visited him, which was just like a poorly drawn face. It was only until we got to the library when it came up again. He pointed at a book cover of an extraterrestrial, exclaiming that was what was visiting him. I mean, I'm skeptical, honestly. He must have seen this on TV. But when I finally start to ask him about it, he explains what happens. This is hard to explain, honestly. This is what I got out of it, basically. Keep in mind, this is from a 3-year-old. A man comes through the wall. Sometimes it's a being with a big white head with short black hair, big black eyes, a white suit, and sometimes it's 2 small blue men in blue suits. They put glowing needles in or around his left ear. The 3-year-old thinks it's for bugs, but I don't know. And it makes him feel sick and hurts a little bit. He then goes into outer space and talks to them, and gets to play with other kids apparently. Another thing that caught me off guard is there was a paranormal investigator just across the street from our house on the same side as my son's bedroom. I went and asked what it was about, and apparently our neighbor experienced a ghost walking through his backyard for a few nights. It would come from the river next to his house. But that's about it. He hasn't changed his story yet. But what I'm more wondering is, what could this be? Is it an alien or is it just some sort of imagination? I don't know. Comments would be very, very appreciated. Thanks for listening to these creepy, spine-chilling alien stories. Honestly, I do believe that somewhere out there in this vast, never-ending universe, there has to be more intelligent life. I'm not sure if they would be floating down on spacecraft and probing people, but you can never be too sure and you can't just write it off. If you enjoyed these stories, please hit that like button as it helps me out a ton. The more likes this video gets, the more YouTube promotes it to fresh new eyes. If you're new to the swamp, why not subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a new video. I upload them almost every single day, and all things natural and supernatural. If you have a story you would like to share in a future video, whether it's an alien story or something completely different, definitely submit that at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I would love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. It's stories like yours that keep this channel going. If you made it to the very end of this video, I appreciate you so much. If you can, comment down below, Dancing Alien, to let me know you made it to the very end and to confuse everyone in the comments. It's always fun to see how many people actually partake in this. I'll see you soon with another creepy video.